welcome to Camera Ready Convos. This is a space where we inspire, guide, and catalyze positive change within ourselves and our community. It is my hope that we all learn healthy ways to connect, build, and achieve our respective goals. As a beauty professional and hairstylist by trade, I choose to use my gifts to provide resources for creatives who are new to the industry and to build a platform for fellow creatives to share their journey. Let's have a convo with Felicia Pride. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I love this platform that you're providing.
Thank you. And Felicia is an award-winning writer, producer, and filmmaker. She's written 2 seasons of Queen Sugar, as well as currently writing for Grey's Anatomy, and also has 2 independent projects out right now, which are called Really Love, which I had the pleasure of working on, and also Tender, a short film that is currently in the production phase or in the fundraising phase for production, correct?
Well, for the feature film. The short film is out. You can watch that at tendermovie.com, and we are currently gearing up for the feature length version.
Yes. So that's where we are. And so let's get started.
Yeah.
So first I want to ask you, like, when did you discover that you had a writing voice, or when did you discover your writing voice?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say in high school, I had teachers who would comment on my writing. It was when I was in college and I was going through a tough time with my father. I remember I wrote this very angry essay about him for an English class assignment. And my English professor just saw something in the essay, thought it was special, and like submitted it to like contests and shared it with the class. And she encouraged me to minor in English and consider pursuing a career as a writer. And I was like, I don't know how you make money. Like, I sound like, first of all, more money and time in terms of a minor. And how do you make money off that? Because I didn't know any writers. I didn't know any writers. I didn't know that as a concept, as a career that I could go into. So I finished my degree, and I got it in business because it sounded like you could get a job in business. And I got a job in business, working in marketing. And it was at that job where I found myself to be very bored. And so I sought out writing outlets. And I remember one of the first opportunities that came my way was a internship. So I was working full time, but I saw this internship with this local newspaper, and the publisher would publish your work. And so I remember my first published piece was a review of Mary J. Blige's No More Drama album. She is my everything. And it's funny because I had no idea about music criticism or anything like that, but I was like, I know Mary. I'm gonna write about Mary. And I remember getting the actual print newspaper in the mail and seeing my review, seeing my name, feeling like I was involved in a conversation that was bigger than myself. And that kind of sealed it for me. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And yeah, so that was kind of how it came about. And that was almost 20 years ago.
Wow. And so in order to do all of that, you literally had to like say yes to this process. And
It kind of, it's interesting. I said kinda, you know what I mean? Because I still had one foot in like practical, right? So I was keeping a job. And even when I decided to go back to school and study writing for my master's degree, I studied writing, literature, and publishing, thinking, okay, I can write on the side, but I'll work in book publishing. And for a long time, I did not call myself a writer. And then even after being a professional writer, having written books, because I eventually wrote books, I stopped writing for about 7 years and ran away from writing because I felt like it was just too much and too hard to make a career out of. So I've had a rocky relationship with writing, until I got to the point where I was like, oh no, can I cuss on here?
yeah.
Okay, this is my shit. We gonna be together. We gonna work it out. I'm gonna be good to you writing. I'm gonna prioritize you. I'm not gonna put all this burden of you having to make me money and all these things. I just want to be with you. And that kind of started to change the game for me.
Wow. That's awesome. So that commitment to
Yeah.
to your craft.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you decide, like, when it became rocky for you, I should let me rephrase, when it became rocky for you, what brought you back to it? Like, what was the moment that said, you know, I need to try this one more time?
It's so interesting. It was, I think it was a couple of things. In that process, I made a short film um, for what became Really Love down the road. There was a time when Really Love was called Open Ended. And I made a short film with some friends. And that creative process got me going again. I was like, oh, just collaborating with smart people, creative people, the making of something, and seeing the art. Um, Got me going again. And simultaneously, I was kind of starting to self teach myself screenwriting because what I realized is that books was not my form. So that's what also was kind of challenging was like, I loved writing, but books was not it. So I was like, something about screenwriting kind of attracted me. So I started to kind of self teach, self study, wrote what became Really Love while I was living in Baltimore. And then I was at the same time running a consultancy where I was doing marketing. So I fell back on my business degree, was doing marketing, and I was burnt the fuck out. I was chasing checks, and I was like, if I'm gonna be doing all this, I might as well do it for something that I absolutely love. I mean, my work at that point was important. I was what we call now an impact producer. So I was helping social justice projects reach audiences. It was important work, but it just wasn't what I felt like. What I realized to this day is my calling, like writing is my calling. So the pull started to be there. And then I had gotten the biggest contract I had ever gotten for my consultancy. And then it got taken away from me. And that was sort of a crossroads point where I was like, I'm tired of running this consultancy. Either I'm going to get a good government job in DC or I'm going to try this writing thing one more time. And my mentor at the time was like, well, move to LA, try it out. What's the worst can happen? You move back. And at that moment, it felt right. And so that was 6 years ago, and I moved to LA, and that definitely changed the game.
Wow. That the move that resonates because I moved here to Atlanta to pursue hairstyling and film. And it was a conversation similar. Gazi, she
Mhm.
she told me, she was like, you know, film is in Atlanta, and if that's what you want to do. And then I still had to come to that acceptance in my mind, you know, like the time is gonna go. So what are you gonna do with it? Are you gonna pursue this, or are you gonna just sit here and say, "Oh, I think I wanna," and you know, so that moment of okay, I have to give this a chance is kind of like your heart fighting with your brain because logic, we have to make
Yes.
money and we have to pay bills, and so with that thought, along that same vein, what can you or what words do you usually give to people who are interested in pursuing a passion but still feeling like they need to stay within a traditional space?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't have to take the big leap. I like to be pushed into a corner so I can come swinging. I can come out swinging. Other people might be smaller steps, right? So even though I made the big move to LA, I still got a job when I first got here.
Right.
And I got a job that was related to what I was doing here as an impact producer. So I got a job working in film distribution. What was interesting, because I loved my job, and that was the first time that I loved a job. I've had many jobs and I usually hate them. I'm like not really a great employee in that respect. So, but I really liked my job. I was going to like Sundance for free. I was going to all these film festivals. I was acquiring films and helping filmmakers with their distribution plans. And then I got laid off. And that to me, it was devastating, but then it was also like a sort of reset because it was like, Felicia, you moved out here to focus on writing for film and TV. You're not making strong enough strides in that. I was doing things here and there. So when I got laid off, that's when I started to really look at my relationship with writing and really like court writing again and get back on writing side and prioritize it. It became the most important thing. So like I got a job working as a executive assistant. So nobody had to know because my job at that point was becoming very public facing and people were starting to think of me as an exec. People long forgot that I wrote books. People long forgot that I had been writing years and years ago because I had, become an impact producer. I was doing all this stuff, right? So I had to like publicly shift the narrative about how people thought about me and how I thought about myself. So I got a job that was, virtual, that was enough money to pay my bills, but that allowed me to focus on writing, and writing became my most important thing. And then I just immersed myself into the world terms of getting into writer groups, writing groups, which I'm still into this day, writers groups. I don't know why I can't say it, which I'm still into this day. Took a bunch of classes. I still take classes. Got a career coach that focuses on entertainment. Like I did everything to like get my mind right and my craft right. So the practical and like the mental and the spiritual. Because for me, a lot of people are like, well, what are like, your keys to success? And honestly, yes, the craft is important, but to me, the most important thing is the self work. I had to work on my self worth. I had to work on my relationship with my art. I had to work on my vulnerability, all those things. And once I started to really take off in the self work, that's when things really, really took off.
Yeah, that internal.
Yes, when I got my shit together mentally and spiritually, uh, that's when things really, really took off. I
That's
don't know if that answered your question. I just started talking. I'm like, I don't even know what the question was.
Yeah, it did. You said you talked. The last thing you said was about being able to do the self work and doing the self work. So, do you have like a place that you go to when you're feeling discouraged or when you're feeling like um, the next thing might be larger than what you feel like you can take on at the moment? How do you make yourself bigger than your task?
Um, I don't know if I don't know if I think about it like that anymore. I think that what comes to me, I'm ready for. Um, but I also do self work every day. So, like, I'm a podcast, like, I listen to some sort of self help motivational podcast almost every day. I'm journaling every day. I'm meditating. I'm doing some sort of yoga. I'm having like time to settle in. And then in terms of the other self work thing, it's therapy. It is hiking with my friends and sort of releasing the week every Sunday. It's so I have a very kind of put myself in a bubble of the work of the self work, because to me that's the most important work, right? And then it becomes craft. So when I'm feeling discouraged though, I kind of sort of investigate or interrogate what that feeling is, and why. Where is it really coming from, right? Is it a fear? Is it ego? um, is it me telling myself? So for instance, directing Tender, I had told myself previously that directing was not something I could do. I did not see like a director. So those were feelings that I had to interrogate. Where did they come from? Why do I have these feelings? And then once I interrogate them, being okay with having those feelings, but being like, those feelings don't serve me. It's fine that I had those. I'm not going to beat myself up about them. But the fact of the matter is, they don't serve me. And so then using some practical steps, taking classes, directing classes, starting to work with actors to direct, put up pieces, then I was able to build the confidence in that way. So I think that's how it is, interrogating the thoughts and trying to understand where they're coming from, but then putting a plan into place to take action for in ways that actually serve you.
That's wonderful. That's like a gem. I have to keep that one for myself. So you talk about Tender. Let's talk about some of the projects that you're working on. Tender is the most recent one.
Yeah.
Where did the inspiration for Tender come from?
Tender is actually was part of a larger pilot that I wrote. Actually, that a pilot that I wrote that got me staffed on Queen Sugar. And when I was thinking about my directorial debut, I did not want to do too much out the gate. I was like, I don't want to do too much. I want to kind of keep it contained. So like something that's like two characters, one location, one day. And I thought about these two characters that I had for my pilot, Kiana and Lulu, and I felt like their relationship could help me, could tell a story, could be a story that was contained, but also contain all of the themes that I want to explore in my work and show the world this is sort of what I'm interested in. This is what I'm into, which is, Black joy, Black woman joy, sexuality, desire, even thinking about the sort of how expectations around us in the American dream expectations around us and the American dream, sisterhood. Just that I felt like their story could get into a lot of the themes. So that's kind of what inspired me to turn their storyline into like a standalone um, piece.
Awesome. I'm sorry about the phone call.
Oh, that's okay.
Um, so you mentioned being able to tell the story of a Black woman and sexuality and love and those moments that we don't normally get to see. I feel like sometimes in media or in mainstream, our love is always hard,
Mm.
and it's something that we always have to fight for, or we have to go through this arduous journey for full acceptance. So how do you feel like Tender brings forth a different narrative for viewers, and where can we see ourselves in those characters?
Yeah, I think one thing that I was very clear on was not having the male gaze or a sort of male perspective anywhere in the film. I think that helped, number one. Um, and that there was not a sort of relationship to uh that
Mm,
between these two women. Um I I also just wanted to show like how Black women are when they are together. You know, whether they are in a romantic relationship, whether they are in a platonic relationship, at least my experiences with Black women, there's always a tenderness there. There's always a space created for us to be our full selves. And so I think that's what I was really just trying to capture was how the relationships that I have with Black women in my life. Um, yeah. And it's interesting. I didn't necessarily set out to show a tender love, but I think that's the result of showing how Black women are with each other.
yes. I when I got to see it, I liked that. Like that was one of the things that kind of stood out to me was this they had moments with each other that was just like holding space for the other. You know, I don't remember the name of which character, but I know the one of the characters, I think she was more of like in a straight-laced like
Yeah,
government job.
yeah.
And the other Lulu, she was more free, and she gave you DC. She gave you DC. Like they both gave you DC,
Yeah.
that DMV feel of like what we do in that area. But it was just on two different spectrums, and you saw where they met in the middle and were able to like support each other and just get into, you know, conversation that wouldn't necessarily be something that you hear normally. So I thought that was a beautiful portrayal.
Thank you. And really you know, Lulu represents a younger version of myself. Kiana represents a version of myself. And they're kind of like a mirror. Like Kiana's almost looking in a mirror at who she could have been or who she was.
Mhm.
But then also Lulu, you know, has some naivete about her, about the world. And so for them to be able to have space. And I love that the holding space of their perspectives and their experiences, and then within that have this romantic relationship because I believe they had hot sex the night before. You know what I mean? I think it was off the hook, but then it's like, and for me that was also aspirational. Like, ooh, you know, a nice morning after where you don't want to like just get the fuck out of there. Um, yeah.
It's not the awkward.
Right. Like, I mean, there was some awkwardness, but like they then were able to like just have a beautiful, beautiful day. And even if that's just what it is, right? Like if that's going to be the end of their relationship, at least they had that time together, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay, so let's talk about the end, the leaving, because I think that's where a lot of people get a lot of their trauma surrounding meeting is the
Mm,
end, because people meet with the end in mind sometimes, or
yeah.
they don't at all.
Mhm.
And so, and it becomes this thing where, like, because I guess now we call it ghosting or whatever, but at some point it was like, I'll call you tomorrow or whatever the case is, and you never hear from that person. But they had like a beautiful moment where the end wasn't traumatic, so it made the meeting mean that much more. It wasn't tainted.
Yeah, like I think the end was definitely a way I was like, how can I end this in a way that leaves it open for possibility, but also like again, this could be the end and that's okay too. You know what I mean? Um yeah, so that was great. And also I just think too, showing uh just different shades of relationships, showing queer women, showing different shades of queerness, um, was also something that I think a lot of Black women gravitated to, because we also don't get to see that. I think a lot of times our relationships look a certain kind of way. And like you said, not only do they look where it's like very heterosexual, it's also hard. And that there may be some truth to that, you know what I mean? But what does it look like when, and I think aspiration is, I'm seeing that more and more in my work a little bit. Like, what does it look like when we can write the ending?
Mhm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Um, so what advice do you give to female writers or aspiring writers when they're trying to find their story or their voice?
Um, I think that's where the self work comes in, because I think that sometimes when we are not in tune with ourselves, we are blocked from a writing standpoint. Even if we can write and turn out scripts, sometimes those scripts don't connect with people because we haven't connected with ourselves. So I would really say, like, I'm gonna keep saying the self work because it's true, but it's so important, investigate, interrogate, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to look at our own traumas, our own joys, to mine ourselves, and then to not let fear stop us, because fear will be there, but stop us from putting it on the page. I think is a good place to start in terms of developing voice, because that voice to me is very much connected to authenticity, um, and so being able to be your full self helps. Although I have found that as I was, that my work kind of leads me. Like I'm basically catching up to my work in terms of my authenticity in the world. I think often my work goes there first. So you may find that you're able to go there with your work first as you're working on it in your own life.
Mm.
Um, and so let that be. Don't be afraid of that. And I think that's probably the big thing. Don't be afraid of the vulnerability, because the vulnerability is what people connect to. And the vulnerability is where the power is, the power of the work. So, yeah.
Vulnerability. I feel like that also is grounded in like a certain level of honesty with
Yes,
yourself. Like,
absolutely.
yeah, sometimes we're on our own bullshit. Like, like, so it's like
Girl, tell me about it. Yes.
yeah, you have to like really unpack and explore and not live in the unpack and explore. And sometimes, you can put it on the shelf and do something else, but revisit it and work through it, because it's not going to happen in a day. But being
Exactly.
having that vulnerability over time and consistently, being, what is it, radically honest with
Yes,
yourselves.
absolutely.
Yourselves,
Absolutely.
yes. So where do you see our Black love stories going and showing up in media or in film now?
Well, my hope is that we can see Black love stories of all kind. I realize that that's sort of um, what I write is Black love, but love of self, love of family, love of familial love, friendship love, platonic love, spiritual, romantic, sexual. So I would love to see that range of stories, and then of all types of people, in terms of Black people, queer, um, across the spectrum, of all types of abilities, of all types of shapes and sizes. And that's my hope, is that all of our love stories can be told. Um, yeah. And, not necessarily within the mold where it's got to be quote unquote a happy ending, um, or that it's got to look like a certain type of trauma, or all these other things that are sort of prescribed for our stories, that they can just be real and like honest. As you said, I think honest is a great word, that they can just be honest. I think that's what we want, when we have a lot of our discourses. I think we're probably all on the same page that we want some honest shit.
Yeah.
And also that can be sexy, can be soapy. It don't have to be dramas, could be funny, so just the gamut. I mean, we have so many stories, and so far to go in terms of representing even a fraction of Black love on screen.
Yeah. You mentioned funny. In my research, you started off in comedic writing. And
Yeah, I was a comedy. I went through NBC Writers on the Verge as a comedy writer. And even the drama that I write tends to be light drama and be more dramedy. So because I think that humor is a really, first of all, it's just especially Black people are funny. Do you know what I mean? And we use humor to get through shit. So I feel like humor has to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably one thing, as I'm looking towards the feature film, that the feature film is going to be funnier. I think that's one thing for me for Tender. I wanted more funny. Um, so yeah, but comedy is, I think, really important. I think it's also an important aspect of the Black experience. So yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think even in our most seriousness, I think we do, like, we get ridiculous. We get ridiculous
I
where it's,
mean, you see it on Twitter, like when some shit goes down, how we flip it into a complete
yes.
joke, right? That helps us to deal, and also provides joy, right? Like, people can't even fathom how we're able to get joy out of the scraps that this country often tries to serve us, and yet we're able to find joy in that, and a lot of it comes through humor.
Yeah, very much so. Great. So, do you want to talk a little bit about Really Love? I really like Really Love.
I wish I could talk, say more about it. I mean, it was definitely, it took me 10 years to get it made. When Angel and I finally connected by year 7, year 8, we both were on the same page of wanting to tell a Black love story. And so hopefully it'll be out sooner than later, fingers crossed.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was my sort of first little baby. Learned a lot from that project. But glad it was made. Glad it was made. And I think it helped to put me on a path of wanting to tell more stories, because you realize, like, yes, you got this one, but it's again so many love stories that Black love stories to be told. And so now I kind of have a fire lit under me.
Awesome. You said 10 years.
10 years.
Wow. Wow. And how
And I
does
probably moved to LA to try to get that movie made. And it's funny because even though Angel and I are both from Baltimore, we met in LA. Um, and she was like, she wanted to direct a romantic drama. And I was like, I got one. And we connected.
Kismet? Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm
Have
brought up.
you seen it? Did you get to see
I
it?
did get to see the
Oh, good, good.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing it be released and making.
Aren't we all, girl? Aren't we all? Oh, to that.
So I want to thank you because I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I definitely want to thank you for one saying yes to your dream, because you saying yes allowed people like me who said yes to mine to actually live it. So I think that is the most awesome thing that anyone can do, is just to be, follow their path and their commitment. So thank you for following yours.
Oh,
And
thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you. I received that.
thank you so much. And thank you for being a part of this today. And I really enjoyed our conversation. And I hope that it helps to inspire other future writers and just encourage other people to tell their story.
Well, I thank you for this platform. And I also thank you. You came out in Atlanta to see Tender on screen.
Yeah.
I appreciated that more than you know, to see a familiar face and just to have that support. Because that was the first time that we showed it like out of state. Because, that actually, no, that was the first time we showed it on a big screen. Because we showed that before we premiered, well, I should say to the public, before we premiered at Outfest, because that was in February. So that was like, I was nervous as hell. So to see a familiar face and you be so supportive, I just remember that. So thank you for that. And again, thank you for this platform, for us to talk and build and share. I really appreciate it. And thank you for thinking of me for it.
Thank you. And you're welcome. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap out, and you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too, and I hope we can work together again.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I will be here.
Hello, love
Take
it.
everything in and just hopefully making it possible for somebody else.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.